Hello, I have a little bit of a different flavor of video for you today. You can see we're doing a screen record or capturing through my computer. And I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about my process of capturing to my computer and editing the photos that I take when I do photography at church. So today I used, again, Kira's Canon SL1. And today I used a vintage lens. This is actually a Sears lens, another one in the series. I actually have three Sears lenses that are M42 mount, the screw-on mount, right? So a little bit different. I've got an adapter that I'm using to make it work with this camera. But this particular lens is a 55mm f1.4, so fairly wide aperture, which is pretty cool. Results in a really nice soft background. The photos that I captured with it, as long as I can nail the focus, which is still a challenge because there's no stabilization. Always kind of hunting for that correct focus. And usually what I'll do is I'll kind of choose my subject, and then I'll zoom in at least one time with just using the digital zoom on the camera, so that I'm getting a little bit closer image of a person's face. I'll manually dial into focus, and then I'll either just capture the image right then, or I'll click twice more in that zoom feature so I can preview the image on the LCD screen. So anyway, I enjoyed shooting with this today. I think that some of the photos that I took turned out pretty good. A number of them were still very soft, which it's kind of funny because, now that Lightroom has that assisted culling feature, when I clicked on subject and focus as the primary category for the assisted culling, it eliminated all but like 6 pictures out of, I think, around 100. So, according to the software, it was like, yeah, these are all way too soft. Trash. So I had to ease up on the strictness of that selection a little bit so that I could actually save a couple of photos. But anyway, so yeah, Canon SL1 shooting with a 55mm f1.4. I also have a 28mm that I haven't shot with yet. I think I'm going to do that in 2 weeks when I do photography at church again, because I've been doing it every 2 weeks. The other one was the one that I talked about the other day, and that's a 135, which is pretty cool. I like that lens. That's kind of a fun one to shoot with as well. So anyway, that's the camera. And what I'm going to do is we're going to hop onto the computer here. It's all right, I've got a little itch on my nose. I'm going to share with you my screen. And let's see, you should see my desktop background. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. You can see my really cool Obsidian wallpaper there that I downloaded from their site. They also make t-shirts and hoodies. My birthday's coming up. They're expensive, but I would love to have a hoodie with this graphic on it. I think that'd be super cool. Anyway, back to the process. So I take my SD card, put it in reader, put it in the USB slot on the computer. And then usually the first thing that I'll do is I'll open up Adobe Bridge. And in Bridge, I do a first pass of just manually culling through the photos myself. Now, Kira's SL1 actually has auto rotate feature, which is kind of nice because it just eliminates one step from the process, right? When I'm shooting with my T6, that's the first thing I do is I go through and I rotate all the images so they're all right side up. And then what I'll do is I'll normally select about 4 at a time. And then on my Mac, it's a Command B. And then it opens up in this type of view. And then I can quickly just use my arrow keys to go through, and if I see one that I want to get rid of, like this one in the upper right hand quadrant, and I'm going to keep it, but just for the sake of example, I'll hit the delete key, and you'll see that it marked it as reject here. I don't know if you can hear that airplane going overhead. It's pretty loud. Anyway, all right, so it's rejected. Now, sometimes, and this works even better when the images are vertical images, if I press the down arrow key, it actually will remove this image from this view. So, and then let's say, okay, I want to keep this one in the lower left, but I want to compare the other two kind of side by side. So I'll just hit that down arrow key again. And there we go, I'm left with the two images side by side. Now a quick escape, hit the escape key and I can go back to this view here. Now I'm gonna keep this photo, so I'm gonna unreject that by pressing the 0 key. Oh, which did not work, sorry, I have to be in that preview mode. Oh my goodness gracious, I'm doing it all wrong. If you grab more than one and then Command B, there we go. All right, and you can see it's highlighted here. So now if I press 0, essentially what I'm doing is setting the rating of this photo to 0. And that is preferable to reject, right? All right, so that's what I'll do. I'll quickly go through all the photos, mark the ones that I want to get rid of as reject. Once I've made that pass, I will select all the rejects and delete them. And I try to be, I try not to be too much like, oh, what if maybe that photo was good? Or what if somebody might want to look at that someday? No, I try to be, nope, I need to cut these photos at least in half, usually. Because if I'm like most people, I imagine, you're probably taking way more photos than you actually need or what you can actually use. So you really do need to be pretty strict about culling a large number of your photos, because each photo, keep in mind, is a fairly large file size nowadays. Even with my camera, which is older, each of these pictures, the raw file is, we'll just roughly say around 20 megabytes. It doesn't sound like a lot maybe, but when you have hundreds of them, it does add up pretty fast. When I do a shoot that is, say, I don't know, 200 or 300 photos, and I'm just pulling some numbers out of the air, it's usually a couple of gigabytes of data. So you can see how that would add up pretty quick. So anyway, I pull them in through Bridge. I do culling them here in this application. And I get it, Lightroom has that feature built in now, but it is still, I feel like it gives me a little bit more control to do it this way. I tried it the other way not too long ago. I actually shot at a wedding, which is really far outside of my comfort zone, but I pulled those photos directly into Lightroom, allowed it to do assisted culling, but then I needed to review. I still had to look at everything, right? Because I needed to validate that the things that it wanted to get rid of, I actually wanted to get rid of, and that the ones that it wanted to keep, I actually wanted to keep. So I still had to go through the process anyway. So pull it in here, get rid of most of them, and then you're left with the photos to edit. So from here, I'm usually, at this point, I'm done in Bridge. So I'm going to go ahead and close Bridge. And the next app that I use is Meta Image. Let's see if I can get it to open for me. There we go, Meta Image. Now this is a program that's part of the Setapp subscription. You can buy it separately, of course, but it's part of that package. So that's one of the reasons I'm using this. What I use this for is I will open those photos that I've decided to keep. I will open them in Meta Image. And I've already gone through this process, so I'm not going to change anything, but I'll kind of show you some of its capabilities, right? Typically, when I do a shoot, not always, but typically, I'm usually using one camera and one lens, right? So this process is pretty easy, right? I will select all of the photos, and then I'm going to set certain things about those photos. And when I say set certain things, I'm talking about the metadata, right? So that information that's baked into the file each file of the photo. And I've already set up presets. I've set up presets for my film cameras, for my digital cameras. I've set up lens presets. I've set up copyright information and favorite locations. And there's various others. I mean, you can do other things as well, but those are the ones that I use all of the time. So with these photos, I'm not going to click on anything now, but I'll just kind of show you what I did, right? So I took these photos with the Canon Rebel SL1. So I click that, and it basically what it does is it just standardizes the naming convention, right? Because there's information that's baked into the camera. There's information that's baked into even the more modern lenses. Now, obviously, a vintage one like this, the camera has no idea what this is, so I have to tell it. So then I would go to lens presets, and I chose the, it's actually this one here, the Sears 55mm f1.4. And then for copyright, whenever I'm doing stuff for church, I set up a copyright specifically for my church, as opposed to my name, right? Because I want them to have the rights to these photos. I'm giving them to the church instead of keeping them for myself or trying to maintain control over them. That's just, I don't know. Nobody told me I had to do that. It's just something I decided seemed like the right thing to do. And then I can set a location as well. So for me, I'm setting it to Life Church Midwest City. And so very, very quickly, with just a couple of clicks, I can define all of those preset metadata data points, right? And then I just click on Save Photos right over here in the upper left hand. And it usually takes about a minute to run through and write that data to all the photos, which isn't too bad. At that point, I'm done in meta image. So all I've done is just update the metadata. Next, I'll open up Lightroom. And I am most comfortable with Lightroom Classic. I know that there's a little bit more modern version. I need to play around with it a little bit, especially now that it allows you to connect to photos that are on your hard drive or on an external drive. So before, it was only cloud-based storage, and I only had like 1 GB of cloud storage for Adobe, and that's just nowhere near enough. That doesn't even scratch the surface of the photos that I have. And my photos are relatively small as compared to some that are captured by more modern cameras, so I can't even imagine. So anyway, in Lightroom, I usually start in the library, and it's the first step is I create a new catalog, and I create a catalog for today's date, or the date of the photo shoot, and then I just put -LR for Lightroom. And I do that to help me distinguish between catalogs for different applications. Like I have one, if I'm doing or using Luminar, I'll put -LN. Those are really the two that I use. I also have Photomator, but Photomator doesn't create a catalog. It creates a sidecar file for every photo. And to me, my computer, which is a Mac Mini M1, I feel like it just doesn't handle that fast enough. So for me, Lightroom, even though it's a subscription application, it still makes the most sense because I can be the most efficient while using this application, at least for now. Someday when I get a beefier computer, then I can reevaluate if this is still the right solution for me. So I created a new catalog for this shoot. And one of the reasons I do that is it keeps my catalog sizes very small, and it contains only the photos for that specific shoot. So it helps me stay focused. Now, at the end of the process, after I move my photos from my local storage on my computer, I will move it to an external drive where I keep all of my original files. At that point, I have a catalog for the whole year. So now I've just created one for 2026. I will open that catalog, and Lightroom allows you to import photos and information from another catalog. So I do that at the very end of my process, right? So I still have one kind of overarching catalog that includes all the photos and all of the edits that I've made for this year. So just kind of a process preference, but so here you can see I've imported my photos, and typically from a process standpoint, what I'll do is I run through the images kind of one at a time, and usually what I'll do is I'll set the overall exposure. I'll update things like vibrance and saturation, and I try to keep it really consistent. I will basically start by applying all of the same settings to every photo, and then as I walk through them, I'll see, does this one need to be tweaked a little bit? Does the exposure need to go up or down? And normally one of the first edits I make is the white balance. And I can see that this one is showing as shot, which I guess I thought I edited that earlier, but for the lobby of the church, usually fluorescent is the setting that's a little bit closest to what I see with my eyes. And I get it. There's probably things that I could do to make sure that my camera is capturing it closer to what I really want. I'm not shooting in auto, right? I never use auto white balance for anything. So I might just need to make sure that I tweak my camera settings to help reduce the amount of effort that's being done here. So I don't know, something I need to think about. But anyway, so I make a quick pass through each of the photos, make sure that the exposure looks as good as it can be. And then I will, once I get through all of them, I will start back at the beginning again. And that's when I will start looking at the alignment of each photo. So for me, that's a keyboard shortcut R, the letter R for rotate. And I will just tweak the rotate and crop things in so that the images are framed the way that I want them to. This one required very little. I don't know if there was one that was a little more dramatic. Yeah, that one. Okay. So here I zoomed in a little bit to kind of put this, the image of the football trophy thing, whatever this is, kind of centered into the image. And so I make that pass through. I make sure that everything is aligned properly. Now, one of the things that I do need to do still is I'm going to go through all of the pictures of the children that I've captured, right? The photos that I've captured of children, not children that I've captured. That sounds terrible. And if their name tag is visible, I will obscure their names. We want to respect the privacy of our families and of their children. So I remove any identifying marks from the tags that they're wearing. So I still need to do that. I need to go through and make those changes. But then when I'm done, I will select all the images and export them to a folder. And typically it's something like this. And actually I've done it here already, even though I realize I need to go back and make just a couple more small edits. But I'll export them, and I'll typically make one more pass through these exported photos just to make sure that they look okay. Sometimes, just because of the quality of my camera and what it's able to capture, sometimes the graininess of a photo isn't really truly visible to me until I've exported it and saved it as a JPEG file. So I do that one last check to make sure that the photos, I believe, are usable and not so grainy and so blown out that no one will want to use them. So usually there isn't a huge discrepancy between what I see in Lightroom and what's saved, but every once in a while, especially in the ones that I take inside the auditorium where it's much darker, I have to use an ISO of about 3200, and unfortunately for the T6, and the SL1 does a little bit better, but even with the SL1, 3200 ISO is pretty high, and it just doesn't result in a great image. So I do double check those. So anyway, at that point, I'm coming to the end of the process, and I will take these photos that I have exported and then upload them to SmugMug, which is the site that the church uses to capture all of their photos from all the various locations. So I drop them in there, put them in a folder, make sure it's organized and able to be found by those that want to use them. And that's it. So I just thought today was a little different. I know I've gone way longer than I usually do, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what my photography process and editing process looked like. And if there's anything you want to dive in deeper on, just let me know and we can take a look at it. So I guess that's it for today. Have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.